Guess I could log in today and see what I can play on Stadia. Tippa-tappa-tippa-tappa. What? Oh no. Stadia? Stadia? Stadia!
Wherever you are, Stadia lets you play the latest games.
Stadia. Gone, but forever burned in our memories. No, trust me, we're gonna be repeating that name for years. It'll evolve from its use as a digital games platform handle to a social lexicon label for an epic failure. Stadia? Stadia'd hard. If you're watching this, Stadia is finished. This video is set to launch the day the service is no longer available in a consumer accessible form. Now, nobody wins when any games platform goes dark prematurely. You're my one true love, boo-boo. But Stadia's failure ain't like the failures we've seen before. No, Stadia's shuttering is something special. It's much, much worse. We've covered plenty of flunked platforms here on Rerez, the Nuon, the Hyperscan, the Gamecom, and many, many others. And while they all had different quirks and drawbacks, they share one commonality that Stadia will never be able to claim. But we'll circle back to that at the end of this here eulogy. If you've been following the Stadia saga from the beginning, then you probably know that this is not my first video on the subject. No, this is my third time covering this troubled platform. And oh, what a ride it's been. But unfortunately, I have to address something, again, for a third time, because Stadia's publicity push was run like a woozy kitten 100-yard dash. They just don't know where to go.
Adorable.
Adorable. Some of you still don't know what Stadia is. At this point, Google ought to be paying me to repeat this, but fine. Okay, one last time. Stadia is a streaming video game service created by Google. It works much like Netflix or YouTube, but imagine if Netflix charged you full disc price for each movie you wanted to stream. Yeah, I still can't believe they messed that one up. A title is loaded on Stadia servers far away and then streamed to your screen. This allows you to play a game without a console, gaming PC, or any kind of complicated hardware. It's the video game streaming vision of the future. Oh, right. Service is dead. Okay, how did we get here? Well, if you've seen our other videos, you know stuff went wrong. Really wrong. If you haven't, I recommend checking those out before enjoying this one, but heck, here's a short recap anyway. In our first video, we explored the lead up and aftermath of Stadia's terrible launch. Customers didn't get their pre-orders on time. There was a tiny library of games to play, and the streaming experience was inconsistent at best. This new product positioned itself as a home console competitor, and during its first operational year, they lagged behind the competition in every possible way. The team at Stadia wanted us to believe that things would only get better, and that the future was bright for Stadia. But we witnessed a lot that painted those hopes as dubious at best. But we capped our initial impression with a ray of hope that maybe things could be fixed. Yeah, that didn't happen. Anyway, we figured we'd let the Stadia cake bake just a little bit longer and come back to it. In our second video, we spoke about how the service did improve. Stadia was available in more locations and was even becoming more stable, which was cool. However, the streaming experience was still inconsistent from user to user. We dealt with performance issues that left us shaking our heads. And while other services allowed you to download games locally to compensate for streaming setbacks, like Xbox Game Pass Ultimate or PlayStation Now, Stadia was incapable of offering a similar solution. Stadia seemed to struggle to expand its market share while its hardware-based competition offered streaming games and additional benefits. By the end of our second venture, we were sure that unless Stadia made drastic changes, it wouldn't be part of the gaming landscape, it would be under it. But who could say when? Back in. This is when. If our first video was about the platform's birth, and our second video was about its life, then this video
is about its death.
It's really sad. So, we decided to highlight the major issues that led Stadia, a service primed to change the way we play games, directly into the Google graveyard. It's a great tapestry of faults, and it all starts with
Problem 1.
Internet connection dependency.
Okay, to begin, I'm gonna give this service praise straight up. Stadia, sometimes with specific network hardware with a fast and reliable internet connection depending on where you lived and what you tried to play it on, worked well enough. You can quote me on that. And if that sounds confusing, welcome to the club. If you had a good setup and lived in the right area, Stadia could work, and many people can attest to that. But depending on where you were and what you tried to play it on, it could have problems. That remained an issue from cradle to grave. It was never fixed because you can't really remedy that unless you're willing to improve every single person's internet connection. Look, if you were a fan of Stadia and you're furiously tip-tapping in the comments, "Hey, Stadia worked for me!" Yes, friend, it may have, but that just meant you were lucky. Fast, reliable internet is still not the norm. It's a core problem some supporters of the platform failed to realize. It worked for you, cool, but it had to work for everyone else, and it didn't. But at the very least, even if you struggled to play Stadia properly as it trudged through life, there was hope that games would come out to expand the platform and give you good reason to keep playing this exciting service that Google was clearly heavily invested in.
Problem 2. Stadia closed its internal studios.
Yup, Stadia shut down their internal video game development groups. And if you ask me, this was when its downfall was first being written on the wall and where I first thought, oh, this thing's over. Platforms live and die with exclusive content offerings, and if the company didn't see the value of investing in their own service, making use of their platform in unique ways, well, who else would? Look, take the history of something like Netflix, one of the first big streaming subscription-based film and TV platforms ever. They started by providing mostly known content with a stable watching experience, and it was good. But they didn't stop there. They invested in their brand, funding an expanded library of content with productions that you could only find in their ecosystem. That's when the company took off. Alls I'm saying is Stadia had Google backing them. Google, a big name with big money pushing video game streaming, it could have worked. And since game streaming wasn't being tackled by too many large companies at the time, they could have gotten a huge lead on inevitable competition by stockpiling their own unique games. But they didn't. They shut down their development studios before they were able to release a single game. Ouch. No first-party titles? Well, that doesn't mean the service couldn't have been bolstered by outside creatives, right? Third-party developers? Hello? Anyone? Yeah. Unfortunately, exclusive third-party support for Stadia was very thin. They launched with one exclusive title, Guilt, and over the years only gained a handful more. Unfortunately, these games didn't highlight the necessity of the service. Almost nothing on the platform ever really took advantage of cloud-based streaming technology. I mean, yeah, you could stream games, but all the games looked like games you could already play elsewhere. What a waste. Oh, there was one very notable exception though, a third-party title whose version was different to its peers, and it should have been a driving factor for the Stadia service. We call this
the Cyberpunk 2077 surprise. A brief side tangent.
For one tiny moment in the entire history of Stadia, something seemed to go right, and it happened totally by accident. Cyberpunk 2077 launched, and it launched bad. The game was riddled with bugs and was virtually unplayable on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Even some PCs with great specs failed to run it properly. Cyberpunk was a mess. I personally witnessed loads of issues when I played it at launch on multiple platforms. But a rumor spread far and wide, one that built and rumbled through the entire gaming community. Cyberpunk 2077 ran perfectly on Stadia. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, it's a little truth and a little lie as well. See, Cyberpunk 2077 was ported to Stadia by a company called QLock. This port ran in a specific way tailored just for Stadia. Being a port, it wasn't gonna have the exact same problems you saw on other platforms. This led to a brief moment in time where everyone thought Cyberpunk was best played on Stadia. Oh, the game was still broken. It crashed, it had bugs, but sometimes different ones. From my own experience, the Stadia port of Cyberpunk 2077 seemed to dial back aspects of the game to push performance. That might have led to it being considered a more stable platform. But in reality, all you have to do is take a look at something like the city streets and, well, look, they're super empty. You plot PC gameplay of Cyberpunk 2077 side by side against Stadia, and I mean, come on. Google tried to promote playing Cyberpunk 2077 on Stadia by offering the base hardware for free. All the customer had to do was buy the game on the Stadia platform, and Google would send them a free Premiere kit. Whew, that's nice of them. But then, likely, it resulted in the company giving away costly hardware to play a game that was very unstable at the time, regardless of which platform you played it on, which wasn't a wise move considering our general Stadia experience was already pretty problematic. Have an issue playing? Is it a Cyberpunk problem or a Stadia problem? You don't want players trying to figure that out because in the end, they'll blame both. Anyway, I digress. Stadia opted to focus on providing games already available on other systems in lieu of making first-party titles. And it almost worked. They got some attention for a tweaked but flawed Cyberpunk port. Now, as long as they continue to expand their user base by spending a heck of a lot of time, budget, and effort advertising their product, the Stadia project could have a fighting chance.
Problem 3. Stadia stopped talking about Stadia.
Stadia stopped making announcements at large events like E3 and the Game Awards, and they also halted their direct-style Stadia Connect showcases. Exclusives just kinda dried up. Even when games did come out, there was no fanfare and virtually no coverage due to bad PR and shifting management. This, of course, did not bolster adoption of the service or enthusiasm from the player base. When users invest time and money into a platform, and that platform fails to treat them well or show a clear path to its future, those users are gonna feel burnt. Do you know how bad messaging got? Google decided to repackage the Stadia streaming tech and shop it around to companies like AT&T and Peloton. And they did this without telling anyone. Eventually, it went public in February 2022, reported on by every tech journalist with an internet connection. They might not be able to run Stadia, but they sure as heck could talk about it. What Google was secretly doing was transitioning the technology that powered Stadia to a white label service called Google Stream. Originally reported by Business Insider, sources had said Stadia had been deprioritized within Google, and there was reduced interest in securing exciting third-party games. Well, this didn't sound good for Stadia gamers, and it got everyone scared that this was the first or second or third, I don't know, I kind of lost count, step towards them axing the platform entirely. Did Team Stadia and Big Daddy Google come rallying to dissuade those fears? Kind of. Publicly, a spokesperson for Google said the company was still focused on bringing great games to Stadia in 2022. And the official Stadia Twitter sent out a vaguely positive tweet.
If you hear one thing, hear this. The Stadia team is working really hard on a great future for Stadia and cloud gaming. We hope you agree, and we know the proof is in the playing.
Don't know about you, but it doesn't feel like their heart is really in it at this point. But what's worse than silently disowning the name of your own service? How about when the face that champions said service goes silent just 5 months after launch? Exhibit A, April 24th, 2020. Stadia Vice President and General Manager Phil Harrison retweets an ad for a Stadia Connect event. Exhibit B, absolutely nothing else for 2.5 years. Nothing about games or the Stadia platform, not even a slight nod to the community. The last nail in the promotional coffin, despite some smart TVs supporting the Stadia service, Google itself refused to put the platform on their own hub devices. That's right, Google, the company that created Stadia, chose not to endorse their own game streaming platform on their own products, something we mentioned in our previous video, and that never changed. And TVs that supported Stadia are not even that common. I've got 4 smart TVs, and not one of them seems to have the ability to run Stadia natively without buying extra hardware. I don't understand that. How could they not have just released an app for every smart TV they possibly could? It's a huge miss. Even the Logitech G Cloud, a handheld gaming system tailored specifically to video game streaming, didn't mention Stadia in its original press release. Let's see, there's Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, Nvidia GeForce Now. Why no Stadia? Must have got an early scoop about, this. Stadia tripped right out of the gate, failing almost instantly to create a lasting impression. Did the service pique interest and make headlines when revealed? Sure. There were press conferences and ads.
4K, 60 FPS.
The ads could have been better, but heck, I was interested. Unfortunately, after the wave of initial excitement, advertising trickled to a halt, and there were very few attempts to reach gamers outside of Stadia's established base. To put it simply, Google didn't do much to keep people talking about Stadia, and this baffles me. They went through all that time, cost, and effort to raise awareness from reveal to launch, only to dial it back when the platform needed it the most. But soon, Stadia was practically handed a world that needed their product.
Problem 4. People didn't use Stadia in circumstances that should have had people using Stadia.
Pardon me for having to beat around the bush in this next part, but it plays into the Stadia story in a very telling way. Let's go over a little timeline. Stadia was formally announced in March of 2019. The Stadia platform was officially launched in November of 2019. Hooray! Google says it's the best way to play the newest games. Fast forward. A few months later, everyone is bound to their home. Yes, we all know why. And most flock to the internet for entertainment and our connection to the world, looking to keep our minds busy. Gamers starved for an infusion of exciting new gaming experiences surrounded by console hardware that was getting long in tooth. So of course, enter Xbox. Yes, November 10th, 2020, the Xbox Series S and X are released. Stock sells out, nigh impossible to find. November 12th, 2020, the PlayStation 5 is released. Stock sells out, nigh even more impossible to find. Both console manufacturers struggle to release more product because the world is reeling from a global chip shortage that began in early 2020. And what did Stadia do to capitalize on this? Nothing. Nothing at all. It's ludicrous. It's indicative of issues that go far beyond internet connections, beyond exclusive game droughts, beyond advertising and marketing failures. It points to problems like
Problem 5. Stadia didn't understand what builds platform investment.
Google positioned Stadia as a new competitor in the game space, a video games platform that seeks to push away a reliance on local hardware. Now on paper, it's fine. Stadia plans to make games accessible and easy to play. It makes sense. But even if that worked, a user base doesn't just pop into existence. It takes planning and time to grow. The folks behind Stadia basically said,
Why buy the game on the box you already own when it plays better on Stadia?
well, maybe the box uses the controller they like, or maybe they like the way things are laid out when they start a play session, or maybe that's where their friends continue to enjoy playing their games too. Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, even PC players, all of the traditionally hardware-centric systems have built communities of highly invested players because they were able to give players time to enjoy games while the platforms themselves continue to grow and evolve. That creates a strong bond. Players were never going to immediately jump from lineages of game hardware that they invested time, money, and had amazing memories with solely for the perceived ease of use and fidelity that Stadia offered. The gaming experience is so much more personal than those factors alone. If a games company creates an inventive product and takes the time and care to continuously make that product better, a community will grow. But Google didn't give those things to Stadia.
The beginning of the end, the shutdown rumor.
On the week of July 29th, 2022, another rumor spread from a Stadia fan group that Google wasn't willing to continue the Stadia service and was looking to sunset the consumer version of the streaming platform by the end of the summer. Now, typically, rumors like this wouldn't hold much weight if someone were to say the same thing about a seemingly healthy and strongly supported platform, like the Nintendo Switch.
My dad's best friend's son's cousin's babysitter said they were at a Wendy's in New Jersey, stuck in a bathroom stall cleaning their shirt after getting covered in grease. They heard someone crying in the stall behind them about how Nintendo was doomed and that the Switch was gonna have to get completely canceled. They got on their tippy toes and peered over top the stall to see who it was, and bam! Shigeru Miyamoto of Nintendo, right there on the toilet, New Jersey, Wendy's.
No, you wouldn't exactly believe that, would you? And not just because Miyamoto-san wouldn't be caught eating anything but noodles. That Stadia shutdown rumor continued to balloon. And why? Well, we heard virtually nothing from Google about Stadia. Google continued to have a bunch of very large public events where they would talk about their services and products, but at the majority of them, they never really talked about Stadia. And to say that Google has a history of quickly dusting away products and ideas is putting it delicately. Their messaging with Stadia had been quiet. So quiet that a lot of consumers that had followed Stadia at the beginning already believed it to be dead. So a rumor that Stadia was closing up shop? Not the hardest pill to swallow. Google eventually got around to addressing the rumor, but folks still couldn't believe it. That is until Thursday, September 29th, 2022. It happened. I mean, really, we all knew this was coming, right? Phil Harrison made a post stating that they made the difficult decision to begin winding down the Stadia streaming service, and that players would continue to have access to their games library and play through January 18th, 2023. It's about a week before Stadia turns off for good, and I'm trying to play Trials Rising, but when I start it up, it just gets stuck on this loading screen. I tried to reload the game, but it still got stuck. It just won't stop loading. And Destiny 2? Don't even get me started. The game took 3 tries to actually get to work, and when it finally did start up, there was no sound. Look, the volume is up at 100%, but you can't hear anything. Then, just a day after this happened, Destiny 2 was completely turned off by Bungie. Oh, you can still log into the game to transfer your character, but you can't play it. This was done randomly without any warning. This was just awful. Then I tried Just Dance 2020. No matter what I did, my phone could not connect to the game. Unfortunately, this makes it completely unplayable. You can't even see the main menu because Just Dance 2020 requires your phone to play. Ubisoft made an announcement that anybody that purchased a Ubisoft game on Stadia will be able to get a free copy on their Uplay service. All you had to do was just log into the game on Stadia and sign up. Problem is that I can't get into these games, so I'll never be able to do that. Believe it or not, even after the announcement that Stadia was going to be shut down, they still continued to release games. Well, not games plural, one game. This one. Basically, it's a version of that really old video game, Snake. From what Stadia described, this game was originally designed to test out features for Stadia internally. It was never meant to be public. The game is really, really hard to play. The latency and input lag is so bad that it's really difficult to play this game. It's not hard, but it's hard to control. I imagine this game will also disappear into the ether once Stadia goes away, but fortunately, you're not really missing much. Stadia was officially coming to a close. It had been given a stay of execution, but it was just a matter of months before, poof, everyone's games would be gone forever. It is with a heavy heart that we inform you that we do not have plans to bring Outcasters to other platforms at this time. Thanks, Stadia. You made this so much worse. For some, they wouldn't even have the luxury of a few months to say goodbye to their Stadia catalog. I lost access to games immediately. I had subscribed to Stadia's Pro membership on and off over the service's lifespan, acquiring a library of Pro games. When Stadia's impending closure was announced, I wasn't actively subscribed. Shocking, I know. I wanted to change that, one last hurrah with the service, but when I tried to hop back in and access those games, nope. They shut down all access to Pro memberships. I was literally unable to restart my Pro subscription, so my Pro library was a no library. I contacted Google support, I spent hours talking to multiple people, and nobody could do anything to help this situation out. I was completely locked out from all of those games. The sad thing about all of this is Stadia is reminding me of another platform. Many a moon ago, there was a video game platform called OnLive. Most of you probably have no idea what it is, but it itself was Stadia. And I'm not joking. Here it is. A streaming box you plug up to your TV and play a game streamed to you from a server. You can even get an application on other devices and play games without the need for this hardware. Sound familiar? Well, it should. It's Stadia, only was released 9 years earlier in 2010.
Introducing OnLive, the fastest way to play top-tier games anywhere. It's all delivered instantly over the internet to you, so you always get the ultimate gaming experience. Whether you're at home on your OnLive game system, at work, or on the road. Experience instant gaming anytime, anywhere.
It failed. But back then, I did play it, and while like Stadia it wasn't perfect, for some it worked. That is, until it went away. Stadia is essentially a repeat of OnLive, failure and all. Remember that Cyberpunk 2077 bundle that included free Stadia hardware? Well look, OnLive also did that first, with a Cyberpunk-style game of all things. Did that work out for OnLive? No, because sending out free hardware means they're losing money. And if you don't garner a growing group of players sticking with your service, it's as good as tossing that dough in a dumpster.
Experience instant gaming anytime, anywhere.
Wherever you are, Stadia lets you play the latest games.
Yeah, that's it. That's the quote, right there. It's a good quote. Stadia should have listened to that quote. No hyperbole, this might be the worst console death we've ever experienced. But as sad as it is for gamers, it's also a big loss for Stadia. For what might be the first time in the history of the games industry that I'm aware of, Google is refunding all hardware and software purchases seemingly at their full initial price point.
Hey there, campers! I'm Mr. Google. I know you're all real heartbroken about Stadia being canceled, so to make it up to you, I'm giving you back all of your money! That's right! I'm not keeping a penny unless you subscribe to Stadia Pro. Then you get nothing. Bought a game? You get a refund. Bought some hardware? Refund! Shh, don't tell anyone, but I'll let you keep the hardware too. Doesn't matter to me, what am I gonna do with it? Use it to play other video game services that are still around, or use it as a doorstop. It doesn't matter to me, I'm Mr. Google. You give me money, and I give it right back to you, because I'm better than a bank. I'm Mr. Google.
Stadia will be refunding hardware in the games purchased. They will not be refunding Stadia Pro, which is even more of a burn on me. They just keep punching me when I'm down. However, even though they are doing refunds, I want everyone to fully understand something. While this may seem generous, this was not done simply because Mr. Google loves you. We shall never speak of this again. It was likely done to avoid legal ramifications. If customers get their expenses back, there is less likelihood of a class action lawsuit. Some of you might even argue that it's a tax write-off, but it doesn't matter. As we're sure Google has found out by now, cloud gaming is expensive. It can be enticingly cheap for consumers, but video games require much more capable hardware to run, and a lot of it. So if you asked me what it would take for cloud gaming to work, well, I don't have to think hard to give you that answer. Xbox did it. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate allows you to stream a game from a server, download a game. Downloading can be essential for some folks. Purchase a game, pay a monthly fee to access a game, use local console hardware to play the game, play from a phone, play from a laptop or a PC, whatever you want to do. It's choice. The question isn't will cloud gaming ever work, because yeah, it does. We've seen it work. Even Stadia got games streaming to people. I think the real question is, can you make enough money solely as a game streaming service to keep that service going? And I believe the answer to that question as of today is no. Well, goodbye, Stadia. You were something else. We've never had to make 3 videos about the same one product before, but that's how epic your misfire of a life was. In hindsight, it's a little sad that after all the dust has settled, there will be no growth to some future niche Stadia fan community. It simply can't exist. Remember when we mentioned other failed game consoles sharing a commonality Stadia will never have? When a console unfortunately kicks the bucket like the Dreamcast did, sure, there's a little hardware upkeep to consider, but at least people still have access to a system and their games. And why? Well, the hardware and games are local. That's not so for Stadia. The moment the service goes offline, it's a permanent game over. That failed service will likely only live on in the memories of those that got to experience it firsthand, or in the many YouTube videos out there that had the pleasure of covering it. Like this one. Don't forget, this thing suffered the same fate, and I'm sure plenty of you were completely unaware of OnLive's existence because of that. It's barely talked about now. However, the results will be the exact same. A budding community can't grow from salted earth, or shut down servers, or whatever. I hate to see it end this way, but the lights are shutting off at Stadia HQ, and they won't be flicked back on ever again. No, they're not coming back from this. Gaming with Stadia is officially over.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.